Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's start of the Rundown. It is the Monday edition, the Manic Monday edition of the Rundown, and we promise to bring you all things conservative and gun and everything, and we're going to have a great time. But I don't do this program by myself. I am your host today, Mike Peworski, but there's help coming from the left coast.
Yes, from the left coast, from behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras in the California. My name is Craig DeLuz. Very happy to be here with you on this Manic Monday.
How are you doing, Craig? How was your weekend this past couple days?
It was phenomenal. It was once again a very restful weekend. It's kind of odd. For the longest time, I didn't get many of those, and here it is. I've gotten like three in a row, so I'm doing quite dandy.
I get a lot from the folks out there that Mike, you start your weekends on Wednesday, so by the time Monday comes around, you must be just extremely relaxed and bored. And the problem is my weekend starts on Wednesday, but it's usually over by like Thursday morning. So I've got to work all weekend long and but it's all good times, good fun. So just one of those days this weekend.
Mike, I did exactly what I said I was going to do. The one constructive thing that I did get done, other than cooking a tri-tip, I did mow the lawn.
Oh, there you go. Let's see. Now I did the flying for 13, 14 hours yesterday. Saturday was half work. And it was just a long weekend. Still very relaxing. Did exactly what I wanted to do. It's just it's like going on a vacation, right? Oh man, you feel so relaxed. No, we were busy the whole time. So
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My wife and I are more like okay, when we go on vacation, we want to go to relax.
right.
There are people who do vacations where it's like every minute of
Yep.
every day is
Yep.
filled with stuff. And it's like, yeah, I
Yep.
kind of came on this trip to relax. I
Yep.
mean, I don't mind doing some stuff, but also I
Yep.
kind of, yeah, I want to chill.
No, exactly. Like last time I went on a cruise, I spent the first half a day for a sports bar on the boat just to to grab a beer and watch sports. And I didn't even care what kind of sports it was. And they had all these activities, everything planned, and I'm like, no, I'm pretty much doing what I want to do right here, sitting down, drinking a
Yep,
beer. Yep.
yep.
So,
Just sitting down in a different place. That's all.
exactly right, exactly. But a quiet place where other people can't come over and ask you to do things for them. That's because you're incapable of picking that item up by yourself. But that's all right. That's all right. Just home issues there. All right, let's move along. Let's get into some news. Uh, More vaccine resistance. This one's kind of cool, Craig. This is the Oklahoma National Guard commanding general there, their adjutant general, and the governor of Oklahoma. The governor of Oklahoma, is Kevin Stitt, just changed his commanding general for the National Guard. And for those that don't know how the guard system is set up, every governor appoints his two-star general, who is the commander of their National Guard. And that's usually equivalent of about a division's worth of soldiers, I would say. Depending on the size of your state, 5,000 to 50,000 soldiers, right? Part-time reserve soldiers, and uh, that general reports to the governor. But the deal is, if the feds need the soldiers, the feds get the soldiers. They get to take the soldiers away. Everyday command, they're under the command of the governor, but they must meet every day the federal standards, and that's how they maintain their they are the army. They are a part of the army of one. The total force. Uh, Same training, same standards, same uniforms, everything. It's just depending on who's paying for the mission that day. The federal government, you're working for them when they give you orders, or the state government when you're working for them. Okay. So daily control, for the most part, belongs to the governor. The governor came along, reappointed a new commanding general every 4 to 6 years, whenever the governor wants to do so. The last commanding general was pro vaccine, pro mandatory vaccine, not just pro vaccine, because like we've said, nothing wrong with being pro vaccine, but it was pro mandatory government controlled vaccine. So he was replaced. We don't know if he was replaced because of his vaccine stance, because the governor, if you recall, is much like Governor DeSantis. You listen, the vaccine's here, it's available, you get it if you want, but nobody shall be punished for not having. The Army and the total force, the Department of Defense, has mandatory vaccine. The new commanding general came in accordance with the governor's wishes and said, we will not be getting the mandatory vaccine. It's just available if you want it. And I'm curious, Craig, if you'd seen this story. There is more to it, but if you'd seen or heard anything about this, or if this is one of those squirreled away in military land kind of stories.
All I've seen is what I've seen in the story that you sent via Yahoo News, and it's
Okay.
literally, uh, well, once again, it's one of those things where the federal government is once again trying to command upon the states, and in my opinion, this is a clear and obvious overreach. I don't know exactly what they can do to the local to the National Guard of Oklahoma, with the exception of withholding money. That's really the only thing. I mean, I don't think they're going to
Yeah.
necessarily attack Oklahoma over.
Well, right, right. No, they can't attack Oklahoma. The things that can happen is they can decertify the National Guard, which means they lose that money.
Right.
Can also, at any time, the federal government can activate all of these soldiers and say, "You're now federal troops, and you will get the vaccine." And they don't have the option to say no. They're in the
Oh,
military. Yeah. So this is not. We're not talking about a state militia force. We're talking about the actual active guard under Title
mm-hmm.
32 and Title 10 of the U.S. Code. So. Um,
Wow.
the governor and the commanding general have asked for exemptions in whole for the Oklahoma National Guard because they have said it is our policy that we will not be making our state citizens get this. So what's about to happen, Craig, is there fixing to be a fight because the Secretary of Defense, Austin, Lloyd Austin, there is going to not look highly upon this. So we know that from this last weekend, right, that the employer mandate for vaccines is now in hold thanks to the Fifth District Court of Appeals. Now we'll get to see, does this affect the National Guard Bureau? Does this affect the Department of the Reserves? So we'll see, because that's what next. And I believe you and I had a conversation here before.
Well,
So
yeah,
it just
I think what
it
you're
took the
looking
state of
at here,
Oklahoma to
and
stand
this
up
is
their
where the
side.
courts, I think, are going to, because where the courts are having a problem is they're like, look, no, the government cannot. Everyone pretty much agrees that legally the government cannot force people to take a mandate, but what they can do is force. What they're trying to do is to force employers to force their employees
Right.
to get vaccines. What they're also going to try and do is force schools to force students to get vaccines. So in other words, they're trying to kind of force because their attitude is they can provide force or force local governments or force employers. And what the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is saying is no, because now you're asking them to act as agents of the government.
Yes. Yeah.
And, that's akin to, quartering troops in people's homes. You just can't do that.
That's right. That's right. Third Amendment. So here is a unique situation, Craig, because this is, let's say the FBI said we're not getting our people vaccinated. That's a federal agency. The problem is a federal official that runs that federal agency. It's the governor that is in charge of this de facto federal agency. So there's going to be an interesting fight here over control. And like I said, and if anybody's ever seen an episode of JAG or NCIS, right, you could the feds could come in at any time and go, "You're activated. You're back on." And oh, don't. They're gonna have to deal with that, and then the governor has to fight for. No, there are soldiers. The last time I can remember a fight for soldiers like this would have been in Selma, Alabama, when the governor down there, remember McGovern activated his soldiers to keep African Americans out of the state university system. So we're talking early 60s, right? And then the president, Kennedy, activated those same exact soldiers and made them federal troops and said, nope, report to me. Here's the deal. You or I send you to foreign lands, So
Ooh.
So it was a fight. And it's been a long time since there's been a cheap executive fight between a president and a governor like this. They actually control armed individuals. So we'll see. There's not going to be any fighting. Let's be sure on that. This is a paper battle, is what it is.
It's going to take place letters to one another. It's going to take place in courts.
Yes.
And by then we will or we should be beyond any issues or concerns relating to COVID. Hopefully.
The interesting part of this is, like we said, it is the state's last resort mandatory enforcement arms. So can you imagine if half the National Guard's states across the country said this? We're not doing it
Well,
because
you
that could
could
be the
very
trend
easily
amongst
see that
Republican
happening.
governors.
I could very easily see that happening.
Well, that's what we can see. We could see that amongst the Republican governors, couldn't we? We're saying we're not doing that. What are you going to do now? And then who's got the upper hand, right? Biden just lost half his military force, so we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. No, but again, we're not talking anything about bloodshed. We're not talking. We're talking about battles. Here, so we'll see how it plays out. Let's move on to the vaccine Nazis. This one just struck me, and I know you probably saw this the same way. This story's only take a moment or two. We've got the Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz out of the Bronx in New York. So he's a state assemblyman, which is a state representative, depending on where you are, what you call it. So he's in the House of Representatives there in the state of New York, or the State Assembly, and he is mandatory vaccine, pro-vaccine, 100%. Well, he had some protesters show up on his at his house and his last week with some signs that said, they were not pro-vaccine, we are not, and a couple of people put swastikas on there and the yellow star they wore on their clothing, as the Jews had to wear in Germany as they were being persecuted. And this Jewish state assemblyman, who's now part of the oppressing force, says that the presentation of this Nazi regalia is offensive and repugnant. Greg, I don't know somebody could not get it so much.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I don't know that it's that he doesn't get it. I think he totally gets it. I think that what the point here that he's making is he's trying to distract from. Well, he's trying to distract from the fact that he is that he is doing what many believe the Nazis did, which is requiring and using fascist tactics in order to get people to do what the government wants them to do. Now, the problem with that is I think utilizing that, in particular with a Jewish member, they gave him the out. I think it was a bad. It is. Yep. Bad messaging, considering the fact that he is a Jew, that he is he's Jewish. I think it put them in a position where they literally gave him something else to talk about other than his position on the vaccine mandates.
It's odd. I know that you and I work with the Jewish community a lot, firearm side. Jews for preservation of firearms ownership. We're good friends. We had the Pew Pew Jew on a couple of weeks ago. And then the motto there is never forget. How can a whole population of 6 million people that were killed during the Holocaust, and that started because they disarmed them, right? So how can they give up their firearms rights? That's why, again, the motto has become never forget. And we have friends like Yehuda Reamer there, the Pew Pew Jew, who's fighting for that. Around, see Jeffrey Dinowitz, who's basically doing the job of Hitler's brown shirts. Those were not military officials and there was low-level government officials and friends of the party, basically, that were enforcing. It's like we talked about, Craig. They're making the restaurant owners enforce the mandates to try to make them the vaccination police. That's the same thing that's going on with Dinowitz here. He is the one taking up the government sword and enforcing the mandate, whereas it was his people that were victimized and 6 million that were killed. The same methods, and again, nobody's put anybody on. What started with mandates and turning into a fellow man, and that's what's going on with this. And it's hard to believe that that's happening, and that man has any respect in his own community now, let alone within the Jewish or Hebrew community over there. So it's tough to swallow, and I hope the irony smacks him in the face sooner rather than later.
Well, I 100% agree. I think you're right on in your analysis. I just think that it's one of those things where it's like you what he considers to be and what the media considers to be his strength, which is his
Yep.
declaring victimhood, because that's what the people on the left like to do, is they like to declare themselves to be victims and establish their victim status. I just think that the issue of including the swastikas really just says, look, yeah, see, these are a bunch of racists, and they're trying to intimidate me because I am Jewish, and they're trying to, they're literally, their racism is now shown front and center in the things they're doing. I'm not saying I believe that, because I don't believe that. That's not my perspective. It's not what I believe. I get their analysis. I get what they're trying to say, and they're right. The problem is that they kind of open the door for that, for him to be able to make those claims.
Exactly. This
and those are the claims the media will play.
Yeah, I'll close it out with this. There's three priorities in life, three guiding principles, right? And in order, it's God, family, country. All right, God, family, country. Just sold out the first two.
Yeah,
he is lifting the flag and charging forward and selling out his God and selling out his family. That's what he's done. So
yes, sir. Yes, he is.
Let's move on. Ivermectin. Craig, what do you know about the ivermectin?
I know that it is a medication that has been used quite often. It is something that is prescribed as a treatment for COVID-19. It's off prescription, but I know that the liberal media keeps trying to portray it as a horse dewormer. They try to say that, well, it's medicine for animals, and there is a version of ivermectin that is used on animals, on horses. Anyway, the point is that it's a treatment that has been used and has had success, although they haven't done quote unquote clinical studies or completed clinical studies to prove that it helps. But there's plenty of data out there that shows that it helps with COVID-19.
One quick point, because you said something there. Do you have fish, Craig? You ever had a fish tank or anything like that?
Never had a fish. Well, let me clarify. I had a fish tank at one point, and because I had a fish tank, it made me never want to have a fish tank again.
Gotcha. Many people are like that. There's fish people and there's not fish people.
We had my fish fried.
In school. Yeah, we had one in school. We had a fish tank in school. It was part of a classroom, but they made fish tanks called fish mocks. And you open up, you drop a pill in, keeps everything healthy, good to go. And if it starts to get weird colors, it's not like shocking a pool. It was more for the health of the fish. Fish Mox is identical. It is amoxicillin. You open it up, you do this, you take the pills out, you check them against the drug identification guide. It's the same amoxicillin that they give for people. They also do it. It's called fish pen for fish penicillin for stronger or larger tanks. So there are numerous drugs that cross over between helping a man and animal. It's the same kind of medication. To say first off that the horse dewormer, but medicine's cross over from mammals to fish to everything else. But moving on from that, this is a proven medication, right, Craig? It's being used, and it may not have the official FDA approval here, but you know where it is approved? England, Europe, many other places. We know it's approved.
Well, no, it's approved here. It's just not approved for COVID.
Correct. It's approved for human use.
Yes.
It's not approved for human use.
Yes.
Unless you talk to, what are they called? Educated doctors that are more concerned about the patient's health than they are about the politics involved. I have seen it personally. You have seen it personally, because we know doctors that prescribe this, that when people have gotten sick with the COVID, they take the ivermectin, and literally in 12 hours, Craig, they go like this. Oh, hey, I'm good. I'm good now. It's literally, wow, this medicine destroys the COVID. It just kicks its butt, and people are back to normal like that. But because there are politicians in the Houston Methodist Hospital Medicare system, they decided that any doctor, including this week, it's Dr. Mary Bowden, when she says ivermectin is a good drug and we should be prescribing it, they yank her privileges. She's still a doctor, mind you, but
right.
She has nowhere legally in the state of Texas she can administer her services, because she has to be part of a medical group. You can't be a doctor and go around just doctoring. You have to be a doctor under an agency that employs doctors. basically. So it's like the easiest way to say is you can't be a security guard on your own. You have to work for a company that employs security guards.
Well,
Okay.
no. Maybe you should ask Kyle Rittenhouse.
Well, no, Kyle
That's
is not.
what some folks. I'm just kidding, folks. I'm just kidding.
I'm
I
giving
know
you
some of y'all going
Texas.
to get mad at me for saying that.
Wisconsin law, that's different. That's different.
Okay.
Yeah, they
I'm
got the
just being
Kurd
funny.
problem. Much like the Iranians did and the Iraqis did. They have a problem with Kurds there, so they got to take care of that up in Wisconsin. Cheese curds, folks. Making a little cheese joke.
There you go. Well, look, let me just to give you my perspective on this whole thing. I think it is sad that politics has now taken over medicine, and that we can't we can't just take a look at things and do they work, do they not work. And by the way, folks, just so you know, off prescription or off label use of medication has been a thing forever. They've always, so don't say, well, it's not approved for that. It's always been a thing. It's, I hate to tell you this, but it's always been a thing. And for some reason now, I know what it is. They're afraid that if there's treatments other than the vaccine, then people won't get the vaccine.
Exactly.
And I always thought the whole point was we just want people to not die of COVID. Forgive me. Forgive me for thinking that's the point of this whole thing.
Flatten the curve, ICU bed space,
right,
and ventilators. Remember ventilators.
Right.
So but I thought that was the goal. You're exactly right, Craig. We can't force the vaccine down your throat if there's a pill you can take. If there's a pill you can take, right? That's why we equated this many times before. Of we're creating a vaccine for headaches, right? Mm-hmm. I don't need a vaccine for headaches. I have aspirin here. I'll just take an asprin if I get a headache.
Mike, now we already know that these are the same people that took issue with hydroxychloroquine, and there have already been clinical studies that have shown that hydroxychloroquine, when taken as a part of that cocktail early, actually significantly helps with COVID, this COVID symptoms. And Absolutely. Only God knows how many hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, by the way, how many hundreds of thousands of people died from COVID because they weren't allowed to take hydroxychloroquine.
Exactly right. Yeah. And that, folks, if you don't think that happened, you're fooling yourself. The mayors in counties around the country, and cities and counties, pulled it with their public health officials from the pharmacies. Took it away. So gone. Hoarded it because they want you to go to the vaccine sites instead. That's where they want you to go. So. All right, moving right along. Armslist, Craig. I don't know if you're familiar with Armslist. It's like it's a lesser version of Gunbroker. Armslist and Gunbroker started about the same time. Gunbroker, clearly won the fight, and now Armslist is the checkers of the hamburger wars in the gun business. So they're a smaller, less known location. Now, what they are, Craig, is they are an organization of rules. If you go to one of these Armslist, you can actually contact other sellers, but it's very just like you would on a gun broker. But the firearms still have to go to a dealer. They have to be transferred to a dealer. Everybody has to do a background check. Everybody has to do a 4473. Everybody has to play by the federal rules when using these sites to facilitate matching up buyer and seller. All right, so there is no, you contacted me and now meet me behind the Circle K with $200 in cash. Your gun questions asked. None of that happens. That's against the law. Whether there was an Armslist or a gun breaker or not, that's against the law. All right, Armslist is not helping you to break the law. If anything, they help to enforce the law because they don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their money. They give a crap about you want to meet somebody behind a dumpster. No, against the law. We are going to be enforcing the standard here, and that's what we do. There was a murder-suicide up there I think it was actually in Wisconsin, if I recall correctly. Robert Schmidt, Sarah Schmidt. Robert got himself a gun off of Armslist. He went and killed himself. Well, killed his wife first, then killed himself. And her father filed a lawsuit against the Armslist. And now the reason for the lawsuit he cited was reckless and unlawful behavior. And I just told you, none of that happened. There was no reckless. There was no unlawful. If there was anything reckless and unlawful, it was by the individual, Robert Schmidt, who purchased a firearm through the background check system, through everything else, and he performed unlawful and reckless acts. Well, the case was dismissed rightfully. So it's nice to see, Craig, that we have some courts still following the laws when it comes to lawful.
It is, it is sad that we want to go after law-abiding businesses and business owners who do nothing more than comply with the law. Once again, if an individual were to buy a car and then they were to ram it through a parade of people, you could not go ahead, turn around, and sue the automaker or the auto dealer that sold the individual the vehicle. I don't understand why people don't understand the analogy. If you've gone through that process, if they've gone through the background checks, if they've gone through and jumped through every hoop that you demand that they jump through, or they put every hoop in place that they're supposed to, they dot every I, they cross every T. What makes you think then you can turn around and sue them? It just makes absolutely no sense. And I'm glad this judge stood up for, common sense, because common sense, as we all know, is not that common.
Yeah. Let's be clear, Craig, if using your example, if that car dealer owner, car dealer manager were to grab his buddy and say, dude, we need some money. Here, take this car off the lot, go do the robbery and bring the car back later. They'd both be guilty, okay?
Right.
Because he knowingly gave it to him to commit an unlawful act and gave it to him in an unlawful manner. So,
if they gave it to someone who they sold it to someone and they knew they were an unlicensed driver.
They sold it to him while they're drunk.
Right.
There you go. Sign the paperwork.
Right, there you go.
He pulls out the intersection and kills somebody,
Right.
So, but if you conduct your business lawfully, you're not liable. Craig, I think we got some video off this next story. I want to talk to you about, what was her name? Tiffany Ross. Is that it?
Yeah.
I think she is the, Tiffany Cross. I'm sorry. The MSNBC commentator. And this past late in the week, this weekend, she decided that she wants to let everybody know that the trucking industry is racist.
Here, I have to tell you, my brother is a truck driver, and he drives across the country, and it's very nerve-wracking to me when he's on the road because it feels like a dangerous industry. But you're trying to disrupt that and bring more people who look like us to the industry. Tell us why.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, thank you for having me this morning. And yes, we are. And we say we're not building truck drivers, but safe CMV operators, folks that can get back to their home whenever they're done with their shift. That's the most important part, ma'am.
Well, how can the industry be more welcoming? Because I have to tell you, I talked to a lot of truck drivers and preparing for this segment, and most of these truck drivers are people of color, and they talked about, hearing some of the racism over the CB. This is, again, an industry populated by a lot of white men over the age of 55. This group of people overwhelmingly voted for Trump. Some people have talked about, aggressive truck drivers cutting them off or not being helpful. So obviously, the more populated it is with people of color, I think you'll see less of that. But how can you encourage people to come and disrupt this space when it seems a bit unwelcoming?
Well, I think just what you're doing, getting myself as a black female out there and letting people know I drove for almost 8 years. And yes, ran into lots of racism, but however, was out there to do my job. And I think that women are definitely, the more we can just get the news out to them, that trucking is an industry that will not only help them to get further in life, but their family and all of that, and present the package to them appropriately, regardless of what anybody else has to say. They're going to be in charge. They're going to be the person behind that steering wheel doing the job every single day and making it happen. So we just need to get the word out there. And I appreciate you for helping us get this word out. The women will be able to close this deficit if we can just let them know. Give them the support that they need to get into the industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just lay a couple of things out there. Number one, if you looked at the numbers, you probably saw that almost 17% of truck drivers are black. Now, mind you, Michael, African Americans, black people make up about 10 or 12% of the population in the United States. So one could easily argue, number one, they're overrepresented as truck drivers.
Right.
Oh, by the way, let me also say, so in other words, the other thing is now they said there's a lot of racism. Well, because truckers overwhelmingly voted for Trump. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you're saying that voting for Trump means that you are racist?
Yes. You haven't gotten this
I'm
message yet?
confused. I'm like, I'm really okay. So now the other thing is now, and all these racist things. Now, all I know is this. What I will say is this: is that if saying you voted for Trump makes you racist in and of itself, in their eyes, makes you racist, then saying go Trump probably is all the racist things that they're talking about. I once again, and it goes back to my biggest issue with all of this stuff is they see everything and they want to push everything through this lens of race and racism. And I'm sorry, but America, the United States of America, is probably the fairest and least racist country in the entire world. I'm sorry, I just don't see it. And I think that they do themselves a disservice. I get it. You want to promote people who look like you going into trucking. I think we need more people in trucking, period, obviously.
Yes.
But in the end, it's like, oh God. Anyway, I'm sorry. The worst part about it is, Mike, every time you declare something is racist that is not racist, you undermine fights against things that actually are racist.
Oh, exactly right. Good point. Craig, this woman, Pamela Day, she's the trucking coordinator or whatever the heck she does at the training school there. And then Tiffany Ross, I'm not letting her off the hook here because they were in lockstep on this belief here, their belief system. Like you said, those numbers, as soon as the numbers came up, it was like listen, except for women, because women really don't want anything to do with trucking. Those numbers were very, very well representative of the population. It's an extreme crosscut. Listen, trucking is one of those businesses that breaks the educational barrier. By the way, it's one of the two, as the Department of Labor puts out, where you can earn well beyond your educated salary. This is not to say anything against truck drivers being educated. I'm just saying that the average truck driver is well over the $100,000 a year mark. They make much more than their level of education and that's because of the difficulty of the job and the sacrifices they have to make. So it's very well received or due to them. So I want to be clear on that. I'm not putting truck drivers down at all. It's a great job. I wouldn't want to do it. So they're well rewarded. You could go into this any race. You could be a truck driver, but to have them say, like you said, Craig, well, there's only 17.8% of blacks that are truck drivers in the truck driving, although it's 15%, 12 to 15% of the population. We're still underrepresented. This is crap. And here's what I see going on, Craig. Right? We know we've got the We got the cargo ships tied up in ports. Right? Truck drivers are very frustrated because guess what that means? All of that cargo they're not being able to process. So soon you're going to see the trucking industry slow down either on purpose or as a strike because they're going to start taking it in the pocket. And when that happens, Craig, what you just saw, the story here is the preemption too, when there's a work slowdown and the inflation goes up because they're going to say, well, truck drivers are white. They're racist. That's why it's happening.
Yeah, that totally fits their modus operandi.
Yep. We've already established they're racist. We know this is why they're doing it.
Right.
That's going to be the fight 2 months from now when trucks are not moving because there's no cargo to move.
Right. Funny how that happens.
Yep. All right. Wanted to get that out there. Make sure you can see the ridiculousness of these stories. I had a couple of ridiculous stories today. So we're running long. Let's get into the parting shot here and provide this to people. We talked about the Rittenhouse trial with everybody last week and today, you got closing arguments going on as we sit here with you. So we'll give you those tomorrow. But some celebrities decided they wanted to get in there and talk about Kyle Rittenhouse's performance on the stand. Well, here's one of our favorite celebrities that clearly knows everything. So let's just check out what he had to say.
Well, now, in his defense, he is an expert when it comes to crying or fake crying. LeBron James decided that he wanted to talk about how, Kyle Rittenhouse was crying crocodile tears when he was on the stand. Now, mind you, this is a guy who literally, if you bump his elbow, he falls to the ground and writhes in pain and has incessant tears. I mean, he is the biggest faker in the NBA. But, so you could take this one of two ways. It's either pot calling the kettle black, or it takes one to know one. He could be utilizing his expertise in analyzing fake crying, and that's why that's what he's going to stand on.
I actually thought his name was LaCryan James.
LaCryan James. Look,
LaCryan James.
Here's the thing, and I when I saw that, here's what I said. My attitude about it was this. You know what? Here's a kid, and he's 18, but 18, still a kid. This was the guy who was recalling what was probably the scariest moment of his entire life, where he thought he was going to get killed. This mob was going to kill him, and he was forced to do
4 times, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he was forced to basically defend himself. He did the one thing he could do, which was defend himself, and he wound up taking 2 lives in the process. That's a traumatic experience. Most people are not cut out for taking someone's life. It is an experience that will change them forever.
Yep.
And in this case, I think that's what you were looking at here on the stand, and it all kind of caught up with him.
Agreed. And like you said, LeBron, on the other hand, who will cry if somebody stubs his toe. I would say, listen, LeBron cries so much he should be playing soccer, but he really can't because you got to run on defense in soccer.
Yeah. Okay. On that note, Mike, why don't you go ahead and give a quick shout out to our sponsors?
Hey, Gorilla Machining, our good friends at Gorilla Machining, our good friends at Grid Defense. Both of them will be with us at SHOT Show. Look forward to seeing everybody there. California Republican Assembly. Make sure you reach out to all 3 of these folks and show them your support.
Real simple, folks. Go out there, visit them. Their links are in the description of this video. Let them know that the folks over at The Rundown sent you. Now, with that, we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for liking and sharing and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will see you tomorrow on Taco Tuesday.
Ooh, we like some tacos.